Live, ladies and gentlemen, October 10th, 2024, coming at you live from the 2LaneLIVE headquarters in Canoga Park, California. This episode is brought to you by Eagle Rider Motorcycle Rentals and Tours. Don't forget to check out 2LaneLIVE.com under the Eagle Rider tab to see how you can book a trip, save some money, and have a good time while you're at it. Today, we have the one and only Jaime Puerta. On the show, we met him at a recent event at Josie's Hideout down in San Diego County. He rides, he's a service member, and he's after a good cause. So, boys, let's get into it.
Yeah, I know it was a long ride for you. And we'll talk about the bike as well, but we want to thank you for coming into the studio. As Josh just mentioned it, we kind of found through the last 4.5 years, our ability to impact people is through people like you that have a story. And therefore, we can help share that story. And I think if we can get the message across today of how important your story is, and if we save one person, we've done our job. And if we save more than that, go get them, right?
Exactly.
So very cool, this motorcycle community. I mean, we're sitting at Josie's Hideout, just tucked in the corner. And you walked up to us. You were there with a group of your brothers.
Yes.
And introduced yourself, and the rest right now is history because we're putting the show together, right?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I can't wait to hear it and share it with the people out there because it's really, you have some compelling stories from riding to the story you're going to get into.
Right.
So
how did you know us?
Well, first of all, my name is Jaime Puerta. I'm the president of Victims of Illicit Drugs. I'm also a member of the Brotherhood of Marine Corps Riders out of Temecula. We have chapters all over the country. I came across you guys because I suffered a tragedy in my life, and I lost my only son. He was only 16 and a half years old to fentanyl poisoning. And during those dark times, I would go on YouTube and I came across your channel and I saw all the travels that you guys were doing. So I go, oh my God, I was so jealous. I wanted to get on the bike and I was living vicariously through you guys. So I don't know if you understand the impact that you have, or that you've had in my life. And I really appreciate that. I get a little emotional as the Hispanic in me, but it truly is, it helped me a lot with my own mental health. So don't think that you guys aren't doing a world of good. You really are. And I truly appreciate you. And thank you so much for having me on your program. I really thank you.
When we hear that, I mean, we get the chills. It inspires us to do more. I mean, and it kind of lets us know what we're doing in this community. And it's a amazing thing.
That's why I saw you guys tucked away in a corner up at the bar at Josie's Hideout. And
He likes to drink a lot.
Yeah. I saw you guys tucked away, and I was going to walk on by, and I go, yeah, probably enough people have already walked up to you already. But I said, the hell with it. I'm going to go up and introduce myself. What do I got to lose?
You should have done it. And we're glad you did that.
And so that's why I came up to you, and I just had to tell you a little bit about my story, and which has opened the doors for this podcast today. So thank you.
Well, and did he give us a coin?
Oh, yeah. And this coin is really cool. And he found another one on the wall from one of his brothers. But
and there's this one as well.
It's just got great artwork. I know you really can't see it, but it's really a beautiful Marine Brotherhood of United States Marine Corps Riders.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're a riding club out of Temecula. They've been around now for probably 30 years. I've been a member of this club since 2017. I've been riding with them. So what I love about the club is we do the same MC rules, but they're not as stringent. In other words, family first, work first, and then the brotherhood. So that's what I like about it. It's not as stringent as other clubs, maybe. Not that I have anything against it, so I'm not talking bad about it, but It fits my lifestyle. So that's what I do. Yep.
Well, and there's another coin here. We got at Josie's Hideout, this warfighter made. You should look at that if you get a chance. We also had a gentleman send a couple patches in out of Vegas. They're doing a fundraiser on November 9th, Rescue Riders annual fundraiser at Mr. D's Sports Bar and Grill. That is 1810 South Rainbow Boulevard, Las Vegas, Nevada. Come out and support Rescue Riders. we're going to send a few things for auction and some merchandise to them. So,
You know, it's very interesting that the riding community has so many people that want to help other people. I don't know of any other thing out there that has this many people that want to help. It's great.
Well, our club basically, well, the brotherhood, we ride a lot together, and when we can, we go on very nice long rides. But one of our main missions at the club has been raising money for the Semper Fi Fund, and they've been doing that now for 20 years. And in that 20 years, they've raised over $600,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's helped out a lot of good people in need. So we have a poker run once a year. Sometimes it's in May, sometimes it's in September. I don't know where it's going to be next year just yet, but I know that they're already preparing for it. They raffle off a bike.
Wow.
So it's a really big thing. Yeah. And we usually do it at the, I forgot what we did at the Wild West Saloon or something like that out in Temecula, around that area.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll invite you guys so you guys can come down next time. You'll have a good time.
Are you going to be at the opening in Santa Clarita for Robert Patrick's new store?
It just depends on what day it is. If I'm here, because I travel a lot.
The 9th.
The 9th, October 9th or September 9th?
November.
I'm sorry, November 9th.
On a Saturday.
On a Saturday. I
Yeah.
think I probably will be here, so I'll definitely go.
Because you'll see us if you do.
Yeah, I'll go there. Yeah, I'll definitely go. Most definitely.
So let's dive into the topic at hand. I mean, we put a couple posts up and talking about the crisis with fentanyl in America, and that resonated with us when you walked up to us in the bar, not only just to say hello, but then to hear your story. And if as I said earlier, if we can find a place to help just at least one person, then we've done our job. And I think by you coming in studio here and opening up to us about your crisis that you've gone through, there's definitely going to be people learning from that. And so I've watched the documentaries, I've looked at a lot of different articles, and just in an amazing 4 short years, your voice is being heard in many different places. So let's talk a little bit about it, because the video, and you can reference where they can find that. At the end, Lance and I, it brought us to tears. And it was primarily about what you were saying, calling his name out. So I think if we can will the strength through this, and not let his death be fallen on deaf ears, let's get the voice out and let's talk about the void, and let's kind of get into what you went through and how you've now changed and what you've done to change and what you've created. And let's start from kind of the top.
Well, it's definitely a group effort. I couldn't do what I do without my dear friend and brother, Steve Filson, and also Chris Didier and Andrea Thomas and Adrian. There's a lot of parents out there that are in the same space as I am. Right. And how I got involved with this was, and I'll try not to get emotional, but my son, after football season at Saugus High School, started dabbling with marijuana. And that quickly delved into a Xanax problem for him. And unfortunately, due to the laws in the state of California, I couldn't get him the help that he really needed, because he could have checked himself out anytime he wanted. So I was, myself and his biological mother, Denise Johnson, we decided to send him to a wilderness camp, per se, out in Kanab, Utah, in Zion National Park. And it was the best decision we've ever made. He was there for 2 months in a week. And it was a godsend, because I got my son back. I got my son back. I got my old Daniel back. He was like a year behind in high school work. He caught up to the high school. He wanted to graduate on stage in 2020. He was motivated. He was raring to go. I mean, it was just, we would talk about things that boys sometimes don't talk about with their fathers. Some things I didn't want to know, but he opened up completely to me. And it's not that I'm saying that we became best friends, but we did. We became best friends, but I was still his father. I recuperated my son. I got my son back. And on March 31st of 2020, at the very height of the pandemic, he asked me if he could take his dog Birdie out for a walk, which I found kind of weird because he never took the dog out for a walk. I always took Birdie out for a walk. But I said, sure, not a problem. He walked out of the house. He came back like 12 minutes later. We had dinner together. It was a very joyful night. It was it was a very, very special evening. I said goodnight to my son. I kissed him on the bridge of his nose like I always did. Even though he was 16 years old, since he was a baby, I always kissed him to the bridge of his nose. And good night, Buggy. That was his nickname, Buggy, because he was like a little bug everywhere and just the smartest kid in the world. I said good night to him, and he was taking medication at the time, and he had been diagnosed with ADHD and severe depression. And I was tasked with waking him up in the morning and giving him his medication. So like most mornings, I walked in his room. I think it was like 8 or 8:30 in the morning. I walked into his bedroom and I found my son face up with his arms across his chest. And oh boy, his lips were blue, his fingernails were blue. And, you know, I've seen death before. I knew what I was looking at. And I just yelled out his name 3 times as loud as I could. My wife came running into the room. My sister Sandra came running into the room. He had very shallow breathing going on. So I ran into my room and called EMTs. And then I called up his biological mom to bring him to come over. I told him there's something terribly wrong. The EMTs in Santa Clarita arrived. They brought him down from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor, and they started chest compressions. They took him to Henry Mayo, and the doctor there at the emergency room said, hey, look, I've called some specialists from Los Angeles Children's Hospital, and they were going to pick him up in a helicopter, but due to the pandemic, there was no traffic on the freeways. They just came and picked him up, and they took him down there, and went down to the hospital. And later that evening, a team of doctors came in and said, Mr. Puerta, Mrs. Johnson, we're terribly sorry, but there's just absolutely nothing that we can do for your son. And I said, well, what does that actually mean? What happened to him? And he goes, well, all we know is that his brain went too long without any kind of oxygen. He's in a very deep coma. And the only thing that's really functioning in his brain right now is like the primordial function of the brain, which is breathing. But even that needs help. But we're going to keep him comfortable for you. And whenever you decide that you want to discontinue life support, we will respect your wishes. It could be 2 days. It could be a week. It could be 6 months. Whenever you're ready, just let us know. The doctors there at Los Angeles Children's Hospital were just the best with us. And I came home that night and in a shock, and my niece came down from Rockland, California. My nephew, Nick, came over, and I had family at the house, and I was in a daze, and I just started photocopying pictures of him. And the next morning I got back to the hospital, and I put pictures of him throughout the room because I wanted everybody to see who my son was in life, you know? And by April the 5th, the doctors came in again and said, you know, we're very sorry to tell you, but, you know, he's already gone through 3 cardiac arrests. His kidneys are now starting to fail. His liver is as well. I think you guys need to make a decision. So that night of April the 5th, Denise and I had a very long conversation. We knew that we had to let him go. And so we made that decision to discontinue life support. And at 3:45 in the afternoon of April the 6th, the team of doctors came in and they discontinued all life support. Denise got in bed with him, and she was stroking his beautiful head of hair, and I was holding my son's right hand when he took his last breath at exactly 5:08 of that afternoon. My son died. There is nothing more humbling than trying and praying to save your son's life or your child's life and not being able to do so. And as a father or the mother who has gone through that, I know that they understand that as well. But it was just horrible. I came home, I was devastated, and literally I was just angry, and I was furious, and I was practically in bed for 2 months after that.
Well, our kids aren't supposed to go before us.
No.
And I don't think we've talked to couples that are having their first child, and you don't really understand the depth of love for a child until you have one or adopt one, or and so I can't imagine. He was 16, 17.
He was 16 and a half years old. My son passed away on April the 6th of 2020, and he was just shy of his 17th birthday. It was a shock to all of us.
So you go into this, I can't believe it, I'm staying in bed for 2 months. What was that like?
Well, it was, I have
Hell.
a business to run.
Yeah.
You know, my assistant at that time, I have a home office. She would come in, and my wife was trying to do the work. I was just in bed, or I'd go into his bedroom and I'd throw myself on top of his bed and I'd cry myself to sleep. And you know, I was so he's my only son, and he was my everything. And I think as parents, we kind of like, we better ourselves so we can try to make our lives, our children's life, as meaningful and as positive as possible. I think that's what we do. And we try to teach them everything, you know. Anyways, I was just watching YouTube a lot of YouTube, and I came across a sailing channel, and my wife and I, one of the first excursions that we left our house, we went out to Ventura Harbor, and I saw some old sailor who's polishing his Beneteau. And I started asking him questions about his Beneteau, and he invited us to go on a cruise with him to Santa Cruz Island. My wife and I said yes. So we went for a cruise. And the reason why we did that, because I was practically nuts. I was going to sell my house. I was going to sell the bikes. I was going to sell everything. I said, let's buy a bike. Let's buy a boat, and let's leave. And my wife, she said, yes, okay, let's do that. But we went for the cruise, and we got back. I go, maybe that's not such a good idea. It's a lot of maintenance in that boat. There's a lot of, just a lot of things. But the thing that changed everything was when Los Angeles County sheriffs came to my home. And because one thing I forgot to tell you guys is that second day when I returned to the hospital, I found half a pill on top of my son's dresser. I found half a pill on top of his dresser, and I took it with me to the hospital with the hope that if the doctors did an analysis of that pill, they would be able to revert or, all of the things that had happened to him and bring my son back to who he was. Deep down inside, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I was kidding myself, but I went ahead and I gave it to them anyways. And they said, Mr. Puerta, there's nothing that we can do. I didn't know it at the time, but they had called up LA County Sheriff's, the Santa Clarita office, and a detective picked it up from there, took that pill and did an analysis of that pill. And they came to the conclusion that it wasn't a real oxycodone pill. It was a fake pill, a counterfeit pill made of filler, binder, and fentanyl. And that's what killed my son. And all you need, depending on your size and your weight, usually it's just 2 milligrams or more. That's enough to take the life of a human being. And that's what took my son's life. And when he told me that, that's when I really got mad, because I said, well, my son made a huge mistake. Children are supposed to learn from their mistakes. They're not supposed to die from them. And my son wanted to self-medicate. I don't condone my son wanting to use a drug to get over that mental crises that he may have been having at that time. He knew better, because I've had that talk with him many, many times, but it was COVID-19. We were locked down. He was in his room 8, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, doing homework, playing video games, not being able to hang out with his girlfriend and his friends, or go skateboarding or we were all locked down, if you remember. And that's when you were going to, on a separate note, we're going to have to contend with the mental health of our children because of the pandemic for many years to come. It's something to keep an eye on. But anyways, he made the fatal mistake of ordering that pill through social media, specifically through Snapchat. And somebody delivered it to him, and he took half of that pill, and half that pill took his life. Once I found out that it was fentanyl, I went online, and to my surprise, I found family after family after family in the United States of America who had lost their children as well due to fentanyl poisoning. As far back as I could tell, they started dying in 2012. The big jump came in 2016. And the first question that came to mind is, well, why haven't I heard about this before? Why haven't I heard about fentanyl? And why haven't I heard about all of these other children who have been passing away due to these poisonings? So in October of that year, I had met Steve Filson already. I've met Matt Capilotto, Amy Neville, a bunch of other parents. I traveled to Columbus, Ohio, where we met with the drug czar at that time, whose name is James Carroll, who's a personal friend of mine now. And I learned a lot more about fentanyl and started a foundation. I stayed with him a little bit, left, and started Void Victims of Illicit Drugs in March of 2021 with Steve Filson and Amy and Matt. Now it's changed a bit. It's Chris Didier and Steve. But one of the first things that we did is we set up meetings with all of the Southern California sheriffs. At that time, it was Sheriff Bianco, Sheriff Villanueva, Sheriff Goff down in San Diego. I forgot what the name of the gentleman from the Imperial Valley is, but we went there with 8x10s of our pictures, sitting in a conference room, parents who have lost their children, and then the chiefs of these county sheriff's departments with their staff, explaining to them who our children were in life. And what we were trying to do is we were trying to break the stigma of addiction and overdose. And what most people don't understand is that the majority of the people who are dying due to the fentanyl crises are not addicted to drugs. Yes, there are them that are addicted to drugs and who unfortunately have fallen to substance abuse and are addicted to drugs. A recent article that came out from the New England Journal of Medicine that was published in January 23rd of this year, UCLA did it, came to the conclusion that we are losing 22 children between the ages of 14 to 18 years of age per week in the United States of America. And what the hell are we doing about it? You know, and that's when
I think in the documentary that you sent over, like in 2020, there was like a 55 or 65% increase
correct
in fentanyl deaths.
Yes.
Like that's massive.
It's a huge jump. But again, law enforcement at that time, I feel, was placing the responsibility of the deaths on the feet of the dead children because they've been in narcotic squads for 20, 30 years. And they're, you know, your mind just gets accustomed to it. Even I myself had the stigma as well. When I heard that Prince had passed away, you know, the first thing that came to mind was that's what rock stars do. They die due to drugs. And what most people don't realize is that Prince had been jumping off of pianos as 12, 13 years old. He had a horrible back pain. He couldn't get a prescription for oxycodone. He bought an illegitimate pill, a fake pill, and it was fentanyl, and it killed him. And same thing, Tom Petty, Coolio, and the Mac Miller. I mean, the list goes on and on. But again, due to the stigma of addiction and overdose, most people don't realize that the crises. Let me just interject this right now. If you think that this cannot happen to your family, because either you don't have anybody in your family who is using drugs on a recreational basis, or you don't have anybody in your family who's addicted to drugs, I'm very sorry to tell you, but you are sorely, sorely mistaken. You're mistaken, because this can take the life of anybody, and it's doing it. It's taking people of all socioeconomic classes. It doesn't discriminate against your race, your religion, the color of your skin. This is taking poor and rich alike. Anyways, in this journey of advocacy, we were invited to be a part of a documentary. The director's name is Dominic Tierno. In September of 2021, Amy Neville actually invited myself and Steve and Matt Capilotto. We went to Idaho for a weekend, and they shot a documentary called Dead on Arrival, which can be found on our website at stopthevoid.org, stopthevoid.org. And once that documentary was published, it became the #1 documentary in the United States as far as the fentanyl crisis goes, because it perfectly explains exactly what's happening in the United States. This is what we've been using in our junior high schools and high schools, in our presentations, in law enforcement, and everywhere.
So on your website, you speak to like educators, because our children spend so much time with teachers and counselors, and so you speak to educators, and then you speak to parents and others as well. So you're going into schools and you're helping the educators see signs, the way to talk to a student.
Right. So
similarly with parents.
Right. Well, we've been invited. Steve has been invited, myself, Chris Didier, in our respective counties. We've been invited by the Unified School Districts to go speak to teachers and what they call at LAUSD, the psychological social workers who are dealing with the mental health of the children in both junior high schools and high schools, where they have also dealt with fentanyl deaths. Can't forget about Melanie Ramos. I think that was her last name, who out of Bernstein High School 2 years ago, who died at Bernstein High School actually at the girls' bathroom. She died due to a poisoning. It's everywhere. So what we do is, because most people don't, this is a different animal. This isn't your what you would call just overdoses. These are actually, this is why we call them poisonings, because the children do not understand what they're getting themselves into or what they are taking, right? So when they go on to a social media site like Snapchat, whether it be because they want peer pressure, they're with a group of friends, they want to try drugs for the first time, there's some kind of emotional stress, physical harm, something like emotional trauma, physical trauma, they just want to be part of the crowd and they go ahead and take a pill. They don't understand that 100% of the pills that are being bought off of social media are they're illicit, they're not real, they're fake, and 7 out of 10 of those pills are deadly. That's what the DEA has told us, and that's the conclusion that the DEA has told us that they've come to. So we go into these high schools, junior high schools, we speak with the psychological social workers, we talk to teachers. There's an educator toolkit, because it's very hard for them to understand. I mean, like right now, and I'm not trying to knock them, but all we have really in October is Red Ribbon Week. And that is so outdated. It's not current with exactly what's happening in our communities right now with this fentanyl scourge. So we teach teachers how to present this material to their students. We teach them how to present the documentary, the questions that can be asked of the kids, and how the kids can participate as well, get extra credit for watching the documentary, for example. And we've been told time and again, we have stacks of letters from children thanking us for coming to their schools because they had absolutely no idea. I had one high school call me in a panic last year when they had 4 poisonings in one semester in Ventura County, or they'll call me when it's too late, when they've already had 2, 3, 4 deaths. So we're trying to be very proactive. I mean, we've been throughout the United States of America, everywhere, and many other organizations made up of bereaved parents as well use our documentary for their awareness and their education awareness efforts.
So let's go back a little bit to Snapchat and some of these other platforms. I know you have litigation with them. I know some other parents. I know some of them were kicked out, but I think there's a few cases that have gone to the next step. And you mentioned when we were talking prior, kind of this disappearing messaging and what's happening. Talk a little bit about how social media has taken over kind of the drug trade, if you will.
Well,
I don't know it.
Right. No, and I appreciate the question, and it's a great question. So when you look at all the deaths that are happening in our country, drug dealing is not the same as it was back in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. Like if you wanted to buy a joint or something like that, you would go to somebody's apartment or not that I would know about that. Full disclosure.
Well, I don't know. You said like you ate a lot at one point.
back in the day, you could smoke a joint, go to Jack in the Box, a double jumbo, and order a fries and a giant chocolate milkshake, and you were good to go.
Yeah.
Wash, rinse, and repeat the next day where there is no danger. But now, I mean, drug dealing is now at a whole other level where the social media applications have been inundated with drug traffickers who are actually reaching our children and are selling their illicit narcotics through platforms like Snapchat. And one of the reasons why they like to use Snapchat so much is due to the fact of the disappearing messages that are on there. So there's no way for law enforcement really to track down to see if they get into the phone of a dead kid, they can't find those messagings or who they were talking to or who did they buy those drugs from. Back in 1996, our legislators wrote a law called it was part of the Communications and Decency Act of 1996, Section 230C to be precise. And it was meant to protect free speech on the internet. But when they wrote that law back in 1996, there's no way that they could have imagined where the internet would be in the year 2024. And what the law was trying to do was trying to protect, again, free speech on these internet platforms. And these internet platforms say that they don't have any responsibility of this crisis because all they are doing is they're just publishing content that they are not procuring. In other words, they're just facilitating the communication between two people. But this is very different. I mean, let's just look at one example, like Backpage. Backpage was an internet site or a social media platform that was notorious for prostitution and sexual exploitation of boys and girls. And the federal government came down and closed them down, right? It's the same thing with these illicit pharmacies. There are a lot of people who are going onto these fake pharmacying and buying drugs. And they say, well, they went onto the platform and bought these drugs. It's not our fault. No, this is something very different. If it's illegal on the street, it should be illegal on the internet as well. And there should be no protections. I am part of a lawsuit against Snapchat. We were 7 original parents that were a part of this. Our original attorney, Carrie Goldberg, out of New York, filed a lawsuit against Snapchat. And then she partnered up with the Social Media Victims Network out of Tacoma, Washington, filed a lawsuit. Now there's 65 parents that are a part of this. And we got over the first hurdle because before, due to Section 230C, we couldn't even get our feet up on the steps of a courthouse. Nobody was listening to us. Nobody was hearing us out. Nobody was saying, hey, sorry, that's free speech. But what we've been arguing is this isn't a free speech issue. This is a faulty platform design that is allowing nefarious actors to using these platforms to reaching our children and selling them fake illicit drugs that can actually take their lives. And that's not the only thing that's going on there, right? We know about the sexual exploitation. We know about sextortion now is a big thing. Bullying, cyberbullying is a big thing, which has caused an uptick in teenage suicide. The sextortion is making kids take their own lives as well. So there's a whole host of problems with these internet platforms that are propagating these deaths. It's not normal to walk into the safest place in the world, which is the bedroom of a child, and find a dead child in that bedroom. Oh. That it doesn't make any sense at all. How is that even possible in our country? Do you know what I mean? And that's exactly what's happening. Whether you know it or not, and I did not know this, our children are communicating with people on their phones who you may not even know who they're communicating with.
Right.
We just have this innate, thing to be, trusting of who our kids are dealing with. And we think that our kids are only text messaging with their friends, not knowing all of the other people who are on the internet that could be communicating with your child. I mean, Snapchat has this Insta friend thing where you click a button, all of a sudden you have 200 new friends. And that for the kids is like a rush. You go, oh, wow, I got 200 new friends now, not knowing who those friends are, who actually on the app itself, they can see exactly your pinpoint location of where you're at,
Right.
and they can go to exactly where you're at. So there's a whole lot of things going on. But back to this fentanyl crisis, it's not only taking people in the substance use community, it's taking a lot of kids who are trying drugs for the very first time in their lives. They make that mistake and they die. And we have to stop it. We just have to stop it.
And you're getting the word out there, and that's helping. And the work of trying to stop it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, I can see you're still mad. But
And you should be.
But when people don't try to change something, then they're not helping either. And for you to harness the anger, the love, the passion that you have for your son and create a foundation and create an awareness program, and that's what we need. And it makes me sad that our officials won't step in and figure this stuff out, because you had mentioned something earlier. You think about 22 kids dying a week. That's just kids. That's not a 48-year-old. That's not a 50-year-old. That's just the kids between 14 and 20, right?
14 and 18 years of age. We are losing in 2022, the conclusion that they came to, and I believe it's much higher, because my own son's death certificate doesn't even show fentanyl as the cause of death.
Really?
My son's death certificate says cardiac arrest, pulmonary arrest, possible drug toxicity. And I've heard of many other parents whose children's death certificates were the same thing. So we feel like that those numbers are much, much, much higher. That study that says 22 kids, we feel that it's much, much higher. Now imagine, and I hate to use this analogy, but it drives me crazy as a parent. And you're right, I am mad. I am angry. I keep it under control, though. I'm generally a very nice guy.
You're a Marine.
I'm a Marine. I mean, it's you know,
all those guys are nice.
Yeah, we're all very nice guys, and yeah, it takes a lot, because we know the challenges of life. We're a different breed. We're molded a little bit differently, and if I wanted to have gone full scorched earth, I could have, but I decided not to. The foundation. It's not just in the name. I didn't do it just for my son. I did it because I did it with Steve Filson and Amy and all these other, and Chris. We wanted a place that other parents could find, because a lot of parents are just sitting there wondering, what the hell happened here? What's going on? And so we're a place where that parents can come to and find out and get all the information that they need. That's why we did it, because when it happened to us back in 2020, again, nobody was talking about this.
Right.
Nobody at all was talking about it.
And that's not long ago. That's only 4 years ago.
That's not long ago. It's only 4 years ago. And a lot has been done in the last 4 years. Our foundation alone, due to the documentary that was produced and released in September of 2021. Again, many foundations are using it. Millions of views on it. I mean, on YouTube, it shows like only 835,000. But most people don't take into account, like myself and Steve, presenting down at the 3rd Marine Air Wing to 20,000 Marines throughout a week. The same thing at the Air Force Academy. We've given presentations. I don't think they'll get mad if I say this, but Homeland Security Investigations, DEA Special Operations Unit, Washington, D.C., CIA, Customs and Border Protection. We've been to most of the biggest federal law enforcement agencies. We've presented to them. And you said, well, why are you presenting to them? They know what's going on. Well, these are people who are gathering intelligence and just gathering data points, but they don't see the face of the crises. I've actually I remember one clearly, an agent from Homeland Security Investigations who emailed me and said, thank you. I was about to ask for a transfer out of this narcotics unit because I was tired of it. But due to the fact that I watched that documentary that you guys have and your presentation, it's reinvigorated me to ask for another 5 years in this unit. And now I'm really going to go, excuse me the language, balls to the wall, and I'm going to capture as many of these assholes as I can. So, I mean, it's really helped a lot just getting into these federal laws.
Well, just think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
You just helped one person.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
And how many people is that person now been impactful for? So you don't maybe know that, but think about that. It's the one step at a time thing. We were told by someone early on that you can't build it one at a time. And we said, watch us. And we're going to build it. And we've built it. But, right. I mean, they were like,
oh yeah,
no, you can't.
Don't say I can't to any of us, right?
Yeah. We had on our fridge at the house when the kids were growing up is you don't use the word I can. It's I can.
Exactly.
And so I think that I can for you, in my estimation, is you've been able to create something that in a time of arguably the worst drug crisis we've seen. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think in this day and age, but I get it. I understand what you're saying. If you used to try to find a dealer somewhere, now if you're on a platform and you can find one, now you don't know what you're getting. You can't trust. And it can happen to someone that's addicted. It can happen to a first-time user. Because in your documentary, it talks about like a grain of sand of a piece of fentanyl can kill you.
Yes. All you need is 2 milligrams. There was this woman in Beverly Hills who had 10 drivers on demand. And I won't say the name of the young man who passed away, from a very, very wealthy family. And they finally caught on to her and arrested her and the drivers. And I mean, these are operations that are happening. You can stand on any street in the United States of America, throw a rock in any direction, and you will hit somebody who's either been directly or indirectly impacted by this crisis. And we're not talking about it enough, right? Finally, law enforcement's talking about it. DEA has been talking about it. They're trying to get out there. But unfortunately, too, I mean, the DEA has been trying to get into schools, but I don't want to get political, but, you know, law enforcement and some of these districts are not so well looked upon. So it's very difficult for them going into these school districts. You know, now we don't have the school resource officers on campuses to talk about this, and they're there to help these kids and educate them. I kind
of look at it this way. I mean, you'd be in an event 20 years ago and someone may say, how many of you know someone that's died of cancer? And let's say a third of the crowd raised their hand.
Right.
Today, you go to an event and you ask, every hand almost goes up.
Oh, yeah.
Similarly, I could imagine that you 10 years ago say, who's known someone that's died of an overdose or an addiction? Now, today, more hands are going up.
Correct.
Well, a lot of people probably aren't talking about it. And I'm going from just my own personal, I didn't grow up doing drugs, never done cocaine, never, you know, it wasn't in my mental to do that. I was always in the mountains or doing something. I had a brother pass away from fentanyl overdose when he was 50. But to me, hearing this conversation, I'm learning, but I don't know. So if you said there's a drug problem, I'm like, oh, I got to go get on my Harley and go have a good time. It affected me with a brother that I lost, but I kind of lost him years ago with his drug addiction. So when it happened, it wasn't like a surprise. But I don't know about this that you're talking about, but I'm learning about it. And it is a problem, but it seems to there might be a lot of people like me that are just like, yeah, whatever, I'm busy doing my life.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but were it not for fentanyl,
yeah,
your brother would still be alive.
Yes.
And you might have been able to at least try to help him with his addiction.
Right.
I mean, seriously, if it were not for fentanyl, Steve Filson, my partner, says it all the time. Were it not for fentanyl, our children would be alive.
Yeah.
If my son Daniel, had I caught him, you know, and found out that he was doing oxycodone, well, I would have dealt with it, and I would have gotten the help that he needed, and I would have dealt with it, and he would still be alive, as well as the other 75,000 people that we lost last year to illicit fentanyl. There's 112,000 drug deaths last year, and approximately 76,000 were all due to illicit
But
fentanyl.
I think you're coining a phrase, and I think it's people should pick up on this. It's illicit and it's poisoning.
And
I don't think people think overdose,
Right.
or addiction, but this is different.
This is very different.
This is something that can take you out like that, not even knowing. And being a recreational drug user, like I am, no, I'm kidding.
So how
But
about
being
that
a
drug
recreational drug user, you don't know what you're getting.
and so I tell people too, I have a lot of friends who smoke pot.
And it's in there now.
And well, the thing is that what I tell them is if you're going to smoke pot, make sure that you buy it at a dispensary, because there are checks and balances with those dispensaries that they're supposed to be following. If you walk into a dispensary, from what I understand, it tells you how much THC is on each product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the stuff that's being bought on black market, right? You don't know the provenance of it. You don't know. And there's a lot of contention. They say that, well, if marijuana were laced with fentanyl at lighting it, it would kill it. I don't know that for sure, but I know for a fact that I know of one mom who lost her son, Colombian as well, in Florida, whose son died due to illicit fentanyl in a vape pen.
So how do you know
And-
if you're the
you know,
occasional guy?
You know what I mean? And then also black market gummies. A lot of people do the gummies to go to sleep,
Right.
but they don't want to pay the price that the dispensary is going to charge them. So they decide they're going to get it they're going to buy or purchase what they want on the black market, not knowing the provenance of it, and go down. I've heard of stories where people have shared pills at a party, and people will take the pill and not knowing, you should only take a pill if it comes out of a prescription bottle with your name on it, period. If you have children who are going to school, moms, dads, if you're out there listening to me, and your daughter is maybe having, cramps, and you want her to not have those cramps while she's at school or something like that, put the pills in a Ziploc bag, write her name on it, take it to the school nurse, and you tell the nurse, you are instructed to give these pills to my daughter. She's not to take anything from anybody else unless it comes out of this bag, period. Or if my son is suffering from migraines, these are my son's migraine pills. He is not to take anything either here from the school or from anybody else. These are the only ones he's allowed to take. Please give him these. It should only have your name on it.
So it's education.
It's education. That's the only way we're not going to arrest our way out of this.
Right.
As much as I would love to,
Yeah.
we're not going to arrest it. We're working on a lot of legislation. Yeah, we'll push that legislation, but we feel at our foundation at Void, at Victims of Illicit Drugs, the only way we're going to stop this is by education and awareness, and that's exactly what we're concentrated on.
So I was reading on your site. There's an LA Times article. UCLA had done a study south on the border south of us, and going into some of the popular vacation spots in Mexico, and I mean, we were in Puerto Vallarta, and we went into a pharmacy and started asking questions and just to see. And it was interesting to me to read that 20 out of the 45 pills that they picked up, 20 of them were laced with fentanyl, heroin, or some other substance. Like the other 30 were or the other 25 were not even the right amount of medicine in them. So every pill that they had basically has got a problem with it.
We are very fortunate in the United States that is that yours?
Oh,
That's weird. I never have my phone on ringer, and for some reason
That's
it's
okay.
on ringer. It's never on ringer. Who did that? Who did that?
We're very fortunate in the United States that there's a very strict chain of custody. They know where all of the pharmaceutical medicine that's coming out of the factories, where each one goes to, and how to get to the pharmacy. So
Yeah.
we're very, very fortunate to have that in the United States. In Mexico, and that in that article that you read, I believe it was UCLA as well that did the study, and they went to the pharmacies in the tourist
Yep.
cities, Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Tijuana, for example, and they found illicit synthetic opioids at these pharmacies as well. But what also they mentioned in this article is that they were not selling these fake pills to Mexican citizens. They were only selling them to the tourists, only to the tourists.
So if you hear that, because if you're traveling in Mexico like we did, you shouldn't buy those bad pills.
No, you don't want,
No.
Well, some people go down there and think, oh, I'm going to get this stuff that I could get in the United States, but it's there, it's cheaper, and I can get more, and they're not.
Well, it's not only people who are looking to party,
Right.
but there are a lot of Americans who have very high healthcare costs,
Right.
and they want to save on money. And people think and trust, for example, Canadian pharmacies or pharmacies in Mexico, and they feel that they are going to be able to buy their pharmaceutical medicine on these sites,
Right.
and it's going to have the same effect or as their true pharmaceutical prescription. Just today, the DEA came out with a list of fake online pharmacies that is selling fake Ozempic.
Oh, geez.
There's a whole list of pharmacies that they've come down and they've posted on their website. So, a lot of people who want to, take shortcuts and think that they're buying cheaper pharmaceutical pills or medicine for themselves or their loved ones, they can be committing a very grave error.
Yeah.
Well, let's we're at roughly the hour, but let's go for a few minutes more. Let's talk a little bit about also on your website. There's a letter that you had written. There's also a closing from 2023 that states the legislation that you had proposed forward has not been moved forward yet. What can you update us on what that letter was about and the legislation that you're proposing?
Well, there's a lot of legislation that we've been proposing.
Yeah.
Aside from Victims of Illicit Drugs Avoid, I'm also the co-chair of another foundation that is called it's the Facing Fentanyl Project. And this project is basically, I'm the co-chair of it. Andrea Thomas is the founder of it. And it's the umbrella group that brings up all of these individual foundations because we feel that together we are stronger.
Right.
And we wrote a letter to the Biden administration to take a look at the fentanyl crisis for what it is. We're looking for legislation to curb these drug deaths from ever happening in the first place. We're looking for, deeming these Mexican cartels terrorist organizations. We were looking for legislation to basically we want the U.S. Treasury, for example, like most people don't know it, but the largest money laundering operation in the United States of America is happening right now under our noses due to illicit fentanyl. And so we want the U.S. Treasury to go after them. We want...
and when you say that, you're talking about compromised bankers, banks, institutions.
I'm talking about banks right here in the United States
Right.
of America who are institutions that I won't mention, but we all know who the big banks are, and they are feeling this crisis as well by allowing the laundering of these illicit funds or monies. Without the money, they can't operate.
Right.
They just can't operate. This is a criminal enterprise.
So educate and kill the money.
Educate and kill the money, and have much stronger laws or enhanced laws to go after the traffickers as well. There's only 30 states right now that have drug-induced homicide laws in the books. California is not one of them, which is why we need to vote yes on Proposition 36. That's coming out. We need to vote yes on Proposition 36. It's going to help the drug people who are addicted to drugs get help. They're going to pay for rehab and things like that. But it's also going to enhance penalties and sentences for those people who are purposely trafficking illicit fentanyl and killing our children. In April of this year, I was invited to Congress with other parents to go to the China Select Committee. It's a bipartisan committee that did a deep dive investigation into the fentanyl crisis in the United States. And the conclusion that they came to and it's not the Chinese people. So don't think I'm a racist or something like that, because it's not against the Chinese people, but it's the Communist Party of China is actually incentivizing the drug cartels within their own country to procure, produce, and traffic the fentanyl precursors to the transnational terrorist organization south of the border.
Yeah, I read that as well.
And in turn, these transnational criminal organizations south of the border are giving all of their proceeds to the Chinese Communist Party, and they're laundering this money at a very low commission rate that's almost unheard of. They're almost practically doing it for free. Part of it is that if you take into account of how many people have directly died due to the illicit fentanyl crises in the United States, but you don't take into account the family members who've been affected, girlfriends, boyfriends, grandfathers, grandmothers. Steve Filson, I've mentioned his name many times before. He's going to hate me for saying this, but sorry, Steve. He just turned 71. He's raising his 7-year-old granddaughter. Yeah. If you look at the economic harm that has been dealt onto the United States, we're talking trillions of dollars. They've been able to wipe out, and I don't say this lightly, they've been able to wipe out a generation of military-aged children in the United States of America without firing one shot. And this is not a conspiracy theory. You can go onto the website, Congress, look at the China Select Committee, and look at the fentanyl report that they produced. It was bipartisan, both Republican and Democrat. They produced this report. And when I talked to my good friend, who's an attorney on there, who invited me, Mr. Matthew Cronin, who is on the Republican side of this, I asked him, now what? And he goes, now take this information and run with it. And I go, well, what about you? You're the government. Dude, I mean, come on, let's go do something. But unfortunately, we're in a very divided times. We're a very divided nation.
But I think back to your point too, is the attacks not only on our citizens, but it's on our children.
It's mostly, well, exactly, it's on our children.
Right.
You know, like, these drug dealers have been able to infiltrate and get to a segment of society that they were never able to get to, which was our children.
Right.
And they've penetrated that shield. I'm telling you, while mom and dad are out at work, there's somebody going to your front door and leaving that pill with your kid, who usually takes it at night. And 3 out of 4 children who died, unofficial statistics, the kids who are dying, 3 out of 4 are found in the early morning hours by their parents in their bedrooms, dead. All right. I'm not making this up. Look at the statistics. It's out there. You know, I can get as mad as I want, and I can, but that doesn't help me a lot. I'm just, I'm just an old Marine, an old dad who just doesn't want any other parent to have to be in the same shoes as I'm in. Because I'm telling you that this is a living hell that we live every day. In my state, myself, Steve Filson, Chris, Amy, Andrea, all these parents who are out there are just trying to spread this messaging, and we're just trying to save lives. And you know, platforms like this, and you guys, I can't thank you enough. I am just so honored and so privileged to being on here, that, and I hope this is a long and fruitful relationship. And I hope to ride with you guys too.
Well, what do you tell people?
Well, we love to learn. What do I tell people?
What is he now?
Oh, family. You're family now.
Thank you.
But we're being educated as well. But you learn, you take it, and we're going to tell somebody down the road. We're telling people now, but we're going to tell people on our journey as well. And we're going to direct them your way. But the one cool thing, this is all happening right now because of motorcycles. We ride, you ride, What do you ride? You have a couple motorcycles?
I have a custom 2015 Street Glide, and I have a 2020 Road Glide Limited.
So you're scooting around all over on a motorcycle, sharing your stories. So that's
Well, I share my story, and it's quite frankly, it's my therapy.
Yeah.
It's the only thing. Riding a motorcycle is the only thing that gets me out of my own way, because I can be as we all know, I think we can be our worst enemy sometimes. We need to get out of our own heads per se. So riding with my brothers in the club, I was telling you in May, I did the Bourbon Run. I rode my bike from here. I wanted to challenge myself first and foremost to see if I could do it. The longest ride I think I've done maybe was to Street Vibrations in Reno, and then 1 year after my son died, my best friend from Colombia, he's a veterinarian doctor. He came down with his girlfriend, and I lent him the Road Glide, and I took the Street Glide, and we went from here to San Francisco to Reno, Yosemite. We just did a loop. I'm thinking next year maybe we go to Sturgis with them. I'll lend them a bike again. I did the Bourbon Run, put down like 5,400 miles on the Road Glide, and I'm just like, it was great for my mental health. I came back, I was weighing 251 pounds, and it spurred me into going on a diet. I've lost 30 pounds since June,
Fantastic.
which is
Good for you.
I feel so much better now. Now I'm not almost blacking out when I'm tying my shoes or my boots.
Well, the cool thing is the story you told us about your Street Glide, where you had it custom built and a custom paint job on it. You let the gentleman pick whatever he wanted to paint on it.
Yeah, so I have to thank Malo. He's I don't know if he watches this channel or not, but Malo from the Vagos, he painted my bike back in 2019, 2020, and 2 weeks before my son died. Well, I'm a big fan of the Archangel Michael, and so he goes, "What do you want to do?" I go, "Just put Michael on there wherever you want." And he goes, "Will you give me free reign?" And I said, "Yes." And he called me one day and goes, "I don't know what's going on, but something is guiding my hand as I'm painting your bike. It's really weird." And my wife took some pictures, and we're seeing, I didn't tell you guys this, but we've seen some like shades of what looks like, I don't know if it's a person, I don't know what it is, but we got like some paranormal activity going on. And his wife was pregnant at the time, and they actually named their son Michael, I believe, and over St. Mike, and on the tour pack, the Archangel is there, and it writes, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil."
So he's got angels painted all over this bike.
Angels and the Virgin Mary and
Marys.
God, and on the tour pack, it's "Though I walk through the valley of death, I shall fear no evil." And I got that bike back literally about a week or two before my son died. And so there are no coincidences. Talking about the biker lifestyle, us meeting at Josie's Hideout, I don't think that's a coincidence.
Everything's fate.
Everything is fate. And I really do believe that it's my kid and Jessica and Steve's kid and Zach and all of these dead children that motivate us and points us in the right direction of what we need to do to try to abate these drug deaths. So again, thank you.
You being a soldier is going to continue on.
I'm not a soldier, I'm a Marine.
Marine.
Semper
I'm
Fi.
kidding.
Hoorah.
Yes. You being a Marine
Hoorah.
is going to continue on this journey.
Yes. Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Let us thank you, and we're sorry for your son's death.
Thank you.
But dare I say, God has plans.
Oh, yes.
And
Absolutely.
for you to be able to shed awareness at the expense of a loss and harness that energy and that anger, and it takes a special person to do that. And you've got a group of people around you as well.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't do it without them.
And so God bless you and your family. And
Thank you.
if we can just get a couple of these people out of and don't take that drug and stay away from, and if we've done it, Daniel will be looking down and saying, I did this because my dad is going to take care of this shit.
He's a speaker, a traveler, a rider, and he's the perfect guy to channel this out there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate your very kind words. It's an army of parents who are doing this.
Yep.
Again, Steve Filson, I love him to death. I keep mentioning his name. I wish he would get on a bike, but I can't get him to do that. His wife won't let him. Yeah.
Start him on an electric bike.
Yeah. I don't think
the pedal bike.
On the pedal bike.
Yeah,
that
and
might
then
be
we'll
it.
graduate him.
And then we'll graduate him. If you want to learn more about what we do, if you want to have that very uncomfortable conversation with your kids, as far back as sixth graders, go to our website at stopthevoid.org and click on the documentary Dead on Arrival. It's only 22 minutes, 33 seconds long. Josh, I think, has our links as well. I'm not very good with Instagram. I'm trying to learn it. You sent me something to a collaborator. I go, what the hell is Galen getting me into now? I have no idea what a collaborator is, but I'll try. But we have Josh. Instagram. We have our Facebook page. Obviously, the website is the best place to go to. And please follow us. And also, if you guys feel in your heart that you want to donate to our cause, we don't take any salaries. We all have full-time jobs. But if you want to donate, it helps us go into schools, junior high schools, elementary schools. We don't charge the schools at all. They say, well, how much is this going to cost me? Go, this doesn't cost you a dime. If you want to donate, if the school district wants to donate, we accept them. But, plane tickets and hotels and Uber can get a little expensive, but we do this because, again, we don't want any other parent to have to be in the same shoes as we're in. And so if you find in your heart that this is a cause that you can do or would like to donate to, that'd be great. And then maybe in the future, we have a poker run or something for fentanyl, or we do a big thing with bands and raffles and everything else. That's something that's been on the back of my mind. I still haven't worked out all the details yet. That's a lot of coordination and a lot of planning, but that's something that I would love to partner with you guys as well. And maybe Robert Patrick can help us too. I don't know. Get some more celebrities.
Hear that, Robert?
Robert, if you're watching, I need your help, bud.
Well, we're in day 2 of storytelling.
Yes.
We had a story told yesterday that we caught a lot of shit on, which is okay.
Yeah.
And it's just when we started this channel, it was to really bring people's awareness around traveling to small towns in this country. And over the last 4 years, it's blossomed into something so much more. To meet people like you and to be able to have a platform to tell stories like this, which is, to me, very important. I know to him as well. To him and I taking phone calls from people, and he said it kind of on the show yesterday too, being a little bit more therapeutic, because this TV screen has given people the ability to look at us and want to do what we do. And I think it's also a platform where they look at it and say, these two can fight a little bit because they're best friends, but they can also share something that's bigger than they are. And that's what's come of this over the last one is now it's our mission. We call it Shaking Hands with America, but we're shaking hands with, we had a guy here yesterday from Australia that watched the drop with us, and he was so complimentary, and he found us during COVID as well. Wow. He was locked down. He said he could only go to the liquor market and the grocery store. So he drank a lot and he watched a lot of YouTube.
Yeah. He gained a lot of weight.
Oh, believe me.
We had one guy tell us that he has 10,000 miles on his couch watching our stuff
during the winter.
Well, if anything, I love what you just said, shaking your hands with America. The longest ride I did was, again, this year. I went from California out to Lurch's house in Tennessee. Another brother of mine who I just love him to death. And going to the countryside of Kentucky, Tennessee,
beautiful, isn't it?
Arkansas, and just talking to the people, that's and you get out of Los Angeles, it's a different world. It's a completely different world out there. And it brought so much it reinvigorated me to such a degree, and it just motivated me even more. and hearing these people's stories while we were on the road and talking to people, it was just so wonderful. That's why I said it before and I'll say it again. I live vicariously through you guys. When I have the chance and I sit down, I'm very busy, but when I watch 2LaneLIVE. Where are you guys at now? Where's Galen? Where's Lane? Where's Josh? Where are they now?
Shaking hands with America.
What kind of trouble have they gotten themselves into? Where's the flat tire now? Right. So, I love it. I just love it. And when you go to places like this, that's when you learn, like, we're not as divided as people would really want you to think. We really are.
Oh, no. You go into a middle America and you find America.
You go there and you are proud to be an American.
Right.
You're not ashamed to flying the American flag.
Absolutely.
I see you, the fist pump every time you see a flag. I started doing that on this last ride. I go, you know what? I'm going to start doing what he does. I'm going to fist pump. And I did that. I started fist pumping.
Well, there's a flag in every one of our videos.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We like to salute the flag.
Yeah.
There's a wall right behind you. You can't see it on camera too well, but this is just lots of great people, hundreds of people sending us their challenge coins, their patches, and we proudly put those on the wall because we know what sacrifices they and their families have given.
Oh yeah.
Well,
and it's not just military; it's police and fire, and
you learn a lot. You learn a lot. We had a video yesterday. A little bit of stuff's flying around about it, a little bit of heavy stuff, and I just got to say this: you all know who we are. You know where we came from. You know what we stand for. You know we're proud Americans. And if you assume anything different, I suggest you think about that because we know who we are and we're not afraid to be who we are.
But I'm abrasive.
Well, that's okay. We know that.
Oh, well, we appreciate you. You rode down here today. You're part of the family.
Thank you.
This, we hope, helps. If you can donate to the cause, please do. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, tell them the org again one more time.
Yeah, stopthevoid.org. Stopthevoid.org.
It's on the screen right now.
On the screen
That's
too.
good.
But for people listening that can't see, so it's in the description as well. We appreciate you opening up, and I can tell it's been a hard road, but the road's got a turn coming in it, and you're getting to that place where those people that recognize what you're doing for them and their families will be that pat on the back from your son.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
With that, 2LaneLIVE.com, get all your V-Twin apparel and parts and all that good stuff. And Lance, we'll see him
down the road.
There we go.
Bam. Let's see.